What's going on, MMP team? Got Diamonds Paul and Morgan Kopecky here coming at you live. We're actually at our home in the Kansas City area right now. And so we are excited to share with you guys here a few times this weekend. And we're going to have some fun with you. And I just appreciate first and foremost the opportunity to share because this is actually the second time. I think it was back in 2022 where we had our first invitation into one of your guys' virtual events. And the fact that we got invited back, that's a big win. And so
I always get invited back. It's just whether or not he gets invited back. That's the issue.
So that says something. But I know you guys, Jody and Kathy, you guys just wrapped up, and Steve, you guys just wrapped up board week up at the corporation. Missing you guys. I just finished up just in December our third year of my third year of my first term, and it was such an absolutely incredible experience. I remember hearing from Joe Markowitz. That's kind of our line of sponsorship. You hear us talk about a lot of these heroes in our lives, and one of the things that Joe Markowitz, I remember him saying from a very early on point in my business when I was a young man. I was 19 years old when I got my business started. I was going to school at the University of Kansas. I was a student athlete. I'll kind of talk a little bit more about that and kind of how that really framed a lot of things up for me, coming from a kind of an athletic background and being very competitive. And I've really always looked at the Amway business really as a sport, and we'll kind of talk about that. But I remember getting my business started and getting around Joe Markowitz and hearing him make this statement. He said, "No heroes, no game." And I've held on to that statement now for 20 plus years. And there have certainly been incredible heroes that have come before us over these last 2 decades. And 2 of them are your guys' leaders, Jody and Kathy Victor. And it has been such an honor serving with them on the board here over these last handful of years. And I'm definitely looking forward to, if they'll have me back, hopefully, Jody and Kathy, you'll have me back, getting back on the board again for maybe some future terms as well, because I will tell you this, when it comes to Paul and Morgan, here's one thing you can say about us. We absolutely love this business.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm so thankful that, Paul got to serve on the board. I just remember being a little bit nervous, like, what's this going to be, and when it comes to Paul, I would say that rules are meant to be bent. Maybe? Yeah.
Maybe broken.
And so his time on the board definitely gave him some, perspective, a ton of perspective, a lot of maturity. He figured out some things that were helpful in all areas of his life. So thank you for that time. And also, when you are been married for 18 years, we've been married for 18, and a half years now, and we've got 3 kids, and we build this business together. So, we're always together, we're home. So when you guys steal them for the board for a few days,
it's like a reprieve for you,
it's
right?
It's a blessing for sure. And then I get to miss
Morgan has some freedom, she gets freedom from Paul.
Exactly. So
So our kiddos now, what I love so much about the Victor family, and really now 3 and now 4 generations, how absolutely awesome is that? And have had the opportunity to serve with Steve as well, and Steve and Marcia, great friends of ours, and Joe and Kelly. Joe, I know if you listen to this, I wish I was there. I give you an extra tight hug, probably wrap my leg a little bit, maybe nuzzle you kind of right here in the in your neck. I love Joe. Joe's my boy. We've had a lot of cool times, a lot of great conversation just over the years at Achievers, and I love the Victor family, and this has been a family business. And for Paul and Morgan now, I was single for my first handful of years building the business as I was a college student, and then met Morgan a few years later, and we'll kind of share a little bit about our background. But one of the things I appreciated about Morgan so much, even though I had a little bit of an established business, I'd hit the platinum level and helped a few people on the team go platinum at that point. But she fell in love. And we always talk about, yes, we're very proud of being partnered with the Amway Corporation, the Amway business, but we've always called it, we don't call it Amway, what do we call it?
Family.
We call it family, #Famway, because it's that is what it's been for us. We've while certainly we build the Amway business, we talk about we build community, we create culture, and then develop leaders. But we just love doing life with people. Our heart's desire, truly our heart's desire, is to see our kids come along and build the business. And now they're getting closer to that age. Nevaeh is 14 years old now.
Yeah, she'll be 15 next month.
Almost 15 years old. I remember holding her in my arms as a baby. Obviously, so many of you guys listening to this right now, you remember those moments, and man, how quick they go past. And so Nevaeh is 14 going on 15. Mariah, who she's kind of gained a little bit of a reputation. Most of the stories I talk about from Mariah, or that I talk about, are of Mariah. She's the mini Paul. All right, this is a perfect example of Mariah. So, she knows me because she is me, and obviously I'm a very competitive individual. She came up to me here a few months ago, and she's like, "Dad, I watched this video on YouTube. Do you know that it's actually physically impossible to take a drink of water with your lips completely sealed around the straw, with your nose plugged? You cannot swallow." And so I kind of do this. I kind of play it out. I'm like, what are you talking about? Yes, you can. She's, no, you can't. You can do it if there's not actually liquid in your mouth, but the liquid has to fill up your mouth completely. Your whole tongue has to be submerged. But as long as your nose is plugged and your lips are completely sealed around the straw, like a vacuum seal, where no air can come in around your lips or through your nose, and you fill your mouth all the way up with water, you cannot swallow. I'm like, what are you talking? She's like, I watched this video. I tried it. You can't do it. She's like, here, I got a glass. Plug your nose and try it. You won't be able to do it. So I plug my nose. I grab this glass. I put my lips around the straw. I seal them. I take a big, fill up my mouth with water, and I swallow. And it goes down my throat. But what I didn't realize, because my nose was plugged, was what was going down my throat was about 3 ounces of white distilled vinegar. And there is a good example of Mariah. So that's my mini me. And so she is 12, and then we got our boy. Yep. And so the Bish is 6 years old now. And so we have a lot of fun. We have a lot of fun doing life together. But what we love more than anything else is we love to see people win. And we're going to talk about that with you guys here today. I know you guys had Joe and Mary Beth Markowitz, our line of sponsorship. I'm actually sponsored in business by my sister, who's our Upline Platinum, and up through a lot of incredible people, to a couple that I know Jody and Kathy know very well, Brent and Brenda Harris. Brent and Brenda. Brent's the guy who, when I saw the plan for the first time at a weekly info session at a hotel, I was a 19-year-old young man. I remember meeting Brent Harris. He was big, burly Brent. I don't remember anything from the plan other than at one point during the plan, he kind of bounced his pecs. Yeah, I don't got it. I don't got it in me, all right? But Brent bounced his pecs, and I was like, man, that is awesome. And but I remember going up to Brent after seeing the plan for the first time, and I went and shook his hand. He's got these big bear paws. And I said, I'm going to be the biggest thing you've ever seen in this thing. And Brent just stood there and stared at me, stared deep into my soul as he had my hand nice and deep, and he started squeezing tighter and tighter and tighter, and it felt like minutes of silence. It was probably 10 seconds. Very awkward silence for me, not so awkward for Brent. But here's the first words out of Brent Harris's mouth to me, and this was as a 19-year-old young man. He said, "Actions speak louder than words." And I've now held on to that for 20 plus years. And so we've got an incredible line of sponsorship. I know that when Joe and Mary Beth shared with the MMP team for this conference as well, Joe said he did a talk, and he talked about depth, and he talked about building depth and how great things come from depth. And that's really our story. I was 20 in depth from Brent Harris, from when Brent and Brenda Harris got their business started until when I got my business started. I believe that we were 20 or 21 in depth. Now, not all of them were still active at that point. I think maybe 10, 11, 12 of them were active. But it was 7 years after Brent and Brenda got their business that this young kid, Paul Kopecky, got his business started. And what's crazy is up through an incredible line of sponsorship, up through, obviously, Joe and Mary Beth Markowitz. These were the ultimate heroes to a young Paul and Morgan. We didn't really start working with Joe and Mary Beth. That was about 5 years ago. So we really started getting closer to Joe. And I remember asking Joe the question, why did you even consider me as a board member? And he made this statement. This is not self-edification. I think it gives a little context to Paul and Morgan, though. He said, because in my decades of building the Amway business, you can have business IQ. And I think, Brent Harris would always talk about, you need to be, if you're going to be a professional, if you want to build this to a professional level, then you have to actually become a professional. And professionals, as Brent would say, are technically and tactically proficient in their skill sets. So while there is a business IQ, things that you need to learn about the Amway business, and we may talk about that as far as being a student of the business and what that really looks like and what that means. While there's a business IQ, there's also a business EQ, and that's like being able to feel people and understand people and be able to effectively, connect with people and understand people. I always say, everyone's heard the statement, there's two sides to a coin. And I love telling people, if you're on one side of that coin, it is impossible for you to see to the other side of that coin. The only way to see the other side of that coin is if you get to the edge of that. And that's being able to, when you can actually understand and have empathy and really understand where someone else comes from. I think it's really, really important building your business to develop that and having that EQ. But what Joe Marquis said when I asked him that question, why did you even consider me as a board member? And he said, because in my decades of being around the Amway business, you and Morgan just care about people as much as really anyone I've seen. And again, that is not trying to give a pat on our back. Please don't hear that way. But we just love this business. Our CQ, our caring quotient, is just it's incredibly high because we remember the kids. I remember the 19-year-old kid. Morgan, you were 24 years old, I believe, when we met. And so maybe your background, because I'd already been building the business for kind of a season of my life. But what did you see when you got introduced? And I know we kind of told our story back in 2022. So some of you guys kind of have some more of like who we are and where we came from. But let's, I guess, kind of a brief background as far as where we were at coming into business.
Yeah. So when I met Paul. He was, a wild and crazy guy, 24 years old. And there was just something different about him. And really, I say it's because of the people that he was around. And I was absolutely attracted to that, but not necessarily initially. So, I grew up with a single mom, and she had 3 children. And I'm the oldest, and she was doing hair and working her hardest to be able to provide for our family. And so growing up, we just had some lack. Like, we didn't have a lot of things that we wanted. We had everything that we needed, and my mom is a superstar. She is absolutely incredible, and she did her best to raise 3 kids on her own. But my dad was just in and out of the picture all the time, just addicted to drugs. And so I think because of the way that I grew up, I always wanted more. I always wanted to be able to provide for other people. I feel like I'm a person that fills needs. So if I, find somebody has a need, I want to be able to fill that. And so that was kind of ingrained in me growing up. Like, I want to be able to help people. I want to be able to fill needs. And first and foremost, I want to be able to be self-sufficient. Like, I want to be able to take care of myself. And so, so I graduated high school. College wasn't the route that I was going to go. I didn't have anything that I really wanted to study. And so my mom was a cosmetologist, and right at that point, like I said, growing up, we didn't have a lot of money, but she had just gone from working commission to being a self-employed cosmetologist, and basically was able to double her income when she did that. And so things kind of adjusted for our family a little bit right when I, am on my own. So my sister's upbringing, her last handful of years in school and high school and stuff, are a little bit different than mine. But, I started working when I was 14 years old, but I graduated high school, went straight to cosmetology school because I saw a way that I could be in business for myself. And when I graduated from cosmetology school, I started my own business right away and started building my business. And I knew what, one of the things that gave me maybe a little bit of a head start as far as building our Amway business was the fact, advantage was the fact that I understood business ownership. I understood what it took to run a business and the mindset. And so, anyways, I I graduated cosmetology school. I started running my own business, and I just was, I was making good money, but I was working a lot of hours. So I was working from 8 o'clock in the morning till 11 o'clock at night. And like I said before, it was my own business. And so if somebody wanted to, get their hair done at 9 o'clock at night, and that's the only time that I could fit them in, like I chose to do that a lot of times, because I wanted to create more income. I wanted to, fit somebody into my schedule. And so I ended up working a lot of hours. Now, for me and my value system, like that's okay when I'm not married and I don't have any kids. But I knew as I was doing that, and as I was, putting money in the bank and, doing things, that I wanted to do, I realized that something had to change. Like I wasn't going to be able to work that schedule for forever. And so a handful of years later, or a couple years later, actually, I started dabbling in real estate because I was just looking for something more. Dabbled in real estate, got my real estate license. I sold a couple houses. I bought a house myself, sold that, kind of flipped that, created some income. And so I was kind of all over the real estate world for a few short years. But I realized that was a lot of nights and weekends as well. And so when I was, what I was trying to do is find something like this business but I didn't know where or what it was,
Right.
Really I was looking for this team, this business model, and a way to be able to provide, for my family, a way to be able to create the life that I wanted to live and, live out my value systems. And so when I saw, when I met Paul and saw the business,
She
team,
fell in love with me so quickly, right?
I wouldn't say that. He stalked me.
It wasn't quite stalking. I just more look at it as persistent pursuit. I think that's a better way, more euphemistic expression.
Sure. Yeah. But, when I saw this business plan, it just made sense to me. I just saw a way for me to put time and effort. And this is the thing, like I was not scared of hard work.
Right.
I worked a lot of hours. I
Right.
wasn't scared of getting out of my comfort zone. I wasn't scared of figuring things out. Like I said, I had business owner mentality. When I started doing hair, for me to have my little booth, it cost $200 a week for me to rent my booth. Just the shears that I used to cut hair were, my cheapest pair of shears were $500. And so for me to start my business, I probably invested $1,500 just to get my business up and running, having things in stock, the color in stock and everything. And so I understood
Not to mention week to week.
Yeah, absolutely. I understood business owner mentality. I also understood that when I'm paying $200 a week in rent, I have to go and build my business in order to stay afloat. And so I was a hustler. I was somebody that, like I said, I wasn't afraid of hard work, and I was ready to have my life look different. So fast forward when I met Paul, and he was different. He just was, he was all in as far as this business. He had seen this business when he was 19 years old, like he had mentioned. And he saw what this business could provide for himself, his future family, and he was very passionate about it. That's another thing that I love about this business that I'm drawn to is it's something that you can be passionate about and you can sell out to, and it impacts and touches really every part of your life, and I wasn't seeing people that have been, in their careers for 5, 10, 15 years that were still extremely passionate about their careers. I did hair, and all day long, for the most part, people were complaining about their careers. What
do you call it? A psy cosmetologist?
Yeah, I was a psy cosmetologist, There wasn't, I don't remember ever having somebody come and sit in my chair and just be like, my job is so great. I absolutely love it. Things are going perfect. Everybody has pain points, right? And so when I saw this opportunity where you can be in business for yourself, but not by yourself, it just all made sense, The fact that you have an upline, a coach, somebody that helps you get your business started, that's one thing. Yes, my mom did hair, but there were so many things that I was figuring out on my own. And to have somebody that was farther along than me and say, hey, this is how I did this. This is something that worked for me. This is something that didn't work for me. You've heard it said, you can learn from your own mistakes, but also you can learn from other people's mistakes as well. And that's something that I feel like I got really good at is just learning from other people's mistakes. I'm like, if this didn't work for you, then I'm gonna go a different route. Like I feel like I took mentorship fairly well after getting a little bit used to it. Maybe at the very beginning, coaching, somebody telling you what to do, somebody suggesting, ways for you to do certain things.
Yeah, it wasn't like, hey, Morgan, you should read this book. It was just like, I'll set it here on the counter and we'll
yeah, and that was at the very beginning. I will say, like, I was a little bit like, maybe hard-headed.
Independent woman.
That's definitely what it was. I don't know what you just did there.
Like a Z-snap. Okay. I don't know.
But, I definitely was independent and a little bit, maybe stubborn or hard-headed because I had just, forged my own way my whole life.
And how you saw your mom, what she had to do as well.
Yeah. And so, but deep down, I really wanted somebody to, coach and mentor, somebody to help, somebody to coach and mentor me, somebody to lead me in that right direction. And so when I saw this business and met Paul, like he said, he was a platinum and helped other people go platinum. And I went to my first conference and I saw people's lives being impacted. I saw relationships that were whole, not perfect, but whole. Like I grew up with a broken family. And so I saw a lot of dysfunction and a lot of brokenness. And so I just really was attracted to the fact that there was like wholeness in these relationships and happiness and joy and people, growing together and building something together. And I just really fell in love with that. And so that was kind of the beginning of our journey. We met and got married in 9 months and started building our business right away. Yeah. And
we knew what we wanted. I knew what I wanted, and I was looking for someone to. I was looking for my wife, to be honest with you. And there's kind of a backstory. I think we shared some of it, a few years ago. But I knew what, and that's I think one of the things you got to ask yourself: do you know what you want and why you want it? I knew what I was looking for, and that's when I met Morgan. I knew it was her. Now, telling her I was marrying her the day after I met her is something that is not highly advisable. And I don't recommend that to anyone, but I did. I knew, and from when we met, we were married in 9 months.
Yeah.
Sorry, I cut her off sometimes.
You can keep going.
Well, let me say this. We're called IBOs, and you're talking about being very independent, as IBOs, independent business owners. I actually think we should be looked at as interdependent business owners because you don't want to be dependent. But sometimes I think new IBOs, new owners, they get to the point where they're so focused on like independence, like you want to learn how to be interdependent. I remember meeting Brent, and I when I started to kind of get to know a little bit more of kind of where his business was at. Now we lived at a distance. I was probably 4 hours away from him down at University of Kansas in Lawrence. And Brent lived up in Des Moines, Iowa. And so I remember asking the question, okay, so let's talk about going platinum. I think that's, if you look at every pin in the Amway, it's really as it's on your way to platinum, your journey to platinum, and then it's helping other people build platinum businesses. And really I say platinum teams. But as you're building a team to platinum and you're focusing on really, as Joe Marquez would talk about, the 2 skills of the business. If you're in a rowboat and you're rowing with just one arm, you're kind of going around in a circle. So it's really learning how to build 2 types of teams, I always say. You're building customer teams as you're increasing your VCS on a month-to-month basis, and you're building, I always say there's a difference between making sales and building and developing a loyal customer team. I'm sure that's stuff that you guys will talk about, but you're building customer teams and then you're building teams of other owners. But what we're looking for isn't dependent owners. It's not necessarily independent, it's interdependent owners that we learn to work together. And I remember asking Brent, like, have you hit the platinum level? And he said yes. And actually at that point, Brent had hit the Ruby level in business. And I said, okay, have you helped anyone else within your organization hit the platinum level? And at that point, I think he'd helped like 2 other people. And I asked him, so I said, have you done this yourself? The answer is yes. There's some credibility. I said, have you helped anyone else? He said yes. So that was more credibility. So naturally, my next question was, are you willing to help me? Because again, I was willing to work. Like I grew up very different from Morgan's upbringing. She grew up single mom, dad was in the picture. My parents just had their 50th anniversary here this last summer. I watched my dad. My dad was a blue collar factory worker, electrician by trade, but I watched old Jack Kopecki. I watched my dad. My parents are 72 years old now, but I watched my dad work 60, 70, 80 hour weeks for 40 plus years. I watched my mom, neither of my parents went to college, and they were working at 18, 19 years old, and they worked until they retired when they got into their 60s. And what's funny is, what did my dad do after he retired?
He went back and got another job. He's had multiple jobs.
I know, he got a retirement job.
Yeah.
And then after that retirement job for about 5 years, he retired a second time. What did he do?
Got another job.
Got another retirement job, still working, portering cars at a car dealership, It's just kind of that generation where they just, but I had the work ethic, and I was never afraid of work. I think if I go back and look at like me athletically, I was never the biggest, the fastest, the strongest, the most talented. But what I realized is that the harder I worked, the bigger, better, faster, stronger that I got in every sport. And so my mentality when I see the Amway business, I said, okay, I just need a good coach. Like when I got my business started, it was my sophomore year at the University of Kansas. And I had 1 year under my belt with a man named Coach Stanley Redwine. And I talk a lot about Coach Redwine. So let me give you some context here. So my freshman year in 2000 at the University of Kansas was Coach Redwine's first year. It's actually a big reason why I chose University of Kansas over a lot of other schools that were recruiting me, because he had a reputation. He had a lot of credibility. He was a 3-time All-American, national champion. He was a 2-time Olympian. So he was working as an assistant coach. And he took his first head coaching position at University of Kansas my freshman year. So I was kind of his first recruiting class. Now, fast forward 25 years later to this year, 2025, Coach Redwine is still there at the University of Kansas, and he's for some college football fans, he's like a Coach Saban, or basketball fans like a Coach K from Duke. That's what he's kind of become in kind of the track and field circles. Kind of a cool little interesting fact here. This past Olympics here, so the 2024 Summer Olympic Games in Paris, Coach Stanley Redwine, he was the head coach for the U.S. track and field men's and women's Olympic team. So just some context here. And Coach Redwine taught me a lot of incredibly valuable lessons that, if I can be honest, really prepared me for that next year when I got introduced to the Amway business and met Brent Harris. And Coach Redwine said, you have to establish presets in your life. Okay, so what does that mean? What's a preset? Sorry, kind of got some squeaky chairs here. So he said, you have to establish presets. He said, human nature is when you come to a point of pain or discomfort or fear, what we will do as human beings, we oftentimes we look to avoid those pain points, or we look to it's kind of the fight or flight. Oftentimes people flight from things that they're afraid of. I love looking at the acronym of FEAR, false evidence appearing real. The Amway business, and this is Brent Harris 101, the Amway business isn't hard. That hard is relative. Like, what do you consider hard? I think my dad working 70 and 80-hour work weeks for 40 plus years, the first 20 of which he worked for a company that when I was a senior in high school, that company got acquired. And after the acquisition of that company, 700 people just like that got laid off because they closed the factory that my dad worked at. Like, that's tough. That's hard there, I would say. There's a difference between hard and challenging. I do believe that the Amway business and building it to the platinum level, there's a measure of challenge to it, but I think competitive people, like, that's what they love. Like, they love the challenge. I say athletes, yeah, everyone loves to win, but I think the greatest athletes, it's like they hate to lose even more than they love to win. And that's what it was for me. When I got my business started, I'm like, Brent, have you went platinum? Yes, check. I said, have you helped other people go platinum? The answer at that point was yes, check. So I said, okay, are you willing to help me? And naturally, what do you think I expected that answer to be?
Yes.
I thought, sure. I mean, I kind of understood the comp plan. Like, it's mutually beneficial, kind of a symbiotic relationship. I help you, it benefits both of us. But when I asked him, are you willing to help me? His answer actually wasn't yes. It was we'll see. And the reason it was we'll see is he actually valued his time.
Yeah.
Now, there was other people in between Brent and I that were there to but like, I wanted access to Brent. And at that point, Brent, I don't know, he was a Ruby in the business. He had maybe close to 100 people on his team. He had 2 very demanding careers, with law enforcement and the military, 2 young kids. And he appreciated and valued his time. So he said, he said, you will determine my decision. And I remember when he said that, because I wanted access to Brent. My dad, one of his, every parent, everyone has like a parent or a grandparent or something that they have those like staple sayings, like that they heard that person say over and over, like the early bird gets the worm. We don't like worms in our house. That's what we enjoy sleeping in. All right.
Yeah, we don't have any worms.
No worms. All right. But here's what my dad said. My dad would always make this statement. This is Jack Kopecky, so you can take it up with him. He said, statistics are for losers. That's what Jack said. Jack Kopecky. He said, statistics are for losers. Here's what he meant. He says statistics are absolutely indicators. And I think you hear like what percentage of statistics are usually made up that you hear. But true statistics, while they're indicators.
75% of statistics are made up.
I think you just made that up. Something like that?
Something like
that. While statistics are indicators, true, they're not revealers. And what I mean by that, when I looked at Brent had built a business to the platinum level, the reason I wanted access to him, and if you're listening to this, the reason I encourage you to fight to get the attention. Joe Markowitz, I remember this great audio back in the day. It was called Get Noticed. Get Noticed, another audio, no heroes, no game. Like, I will tell you, coming up I performed, honestly, as much to get noticed. And like, I wanted to earn the respect of the people I respect most. That's why it's been such an incredible blessing over these last handful of years to really have gotten to know Jody and Kathy Victor, because they're such heroes. Like they're the OGs. Brent said, is that old guard? I'm like, no, that's original gangsta, Brent. All right. Jody and Kathy, the original gangstas. And there's some incredible OGs within the MMP team. And here's the thing, listen, go find, I think Joe maybe even talked or will talk about this with you and him and Mary Beth talk, go find some young kids, young couples, people that have big things they want to accomplish and that they truly value the value that you possess. Like that's what attracted me to a Brent Harris. It wasn't his level in business. Now that brought some credibility, but it's when I got around him, the substance of who he was. And I wanted access. That's why I got very focused, because I didn't start working with Brent until a handful of months into my business, until I got myself noticed, until I think maybe 4 or 5 months into business. I think I was like 6 wide. I'd sponsored 6 organizations, and it kind of got Brent's attention. But I remember going back. So if we talk about that journey to platinum, I look back and I remember what Coach Redwine would say. Coach Redwine would say, you have to establish presets. And I'll never forget this story. We're in a workout early. I'm a freshman. I'm trying to make a name for myself. I'm trying. Honestly, I don't have some of the natural ability, some of the talent that some of these other guys I was running with, and some other guys on the team who were older than me. And so I remember we were in this workout, and I was really pushing myself. And to be honest, I was pushing myself to try to keep up with like the first group. I pushed myself like past my limits at that point. And I remember during this workout, lights went out and I literally passed out during this workout. And I remember kind of coming to, and Coach Redwine standing above me said, get up and finish your workout. And I remember these words came out of my mouth. This is 20 plus years ago. I said, I can't. Sometimes you take a jelly donut, you squeeze it, and you kind of see what's on the inside of it. There was some of that mental, if I can say, we talk about mental toughness and fortitude. There was some mental weakness in me. And I said, I can't. And I remember Coach Redwine said, if I ever hear those words come out of your mouth again, you're no longer a member of this team. Now get up and finish your workout. Here's what he did. As any great leader, he reached down and he pulled me up. And he actually finished that workout with me. But after I was in the training room after that, and he said, how you feeling? And I'm like, I'm all right. And he said, you're not dead. I'm proud of you. And I just remembered that, like, it's like the adage in the Army, whatever doesn't kill you makes you stronger. The Amway business is not hard. It's going to be challenging. You're going to have to learn and develop some skill sets. You're going to have to learn to develop some mindset. How do you develop skill sets? You go do work. You mess up. You fail faster. How do you develop the mindset? What do you think? How do you develop the mindset?
Reading.
Listening.
Attending conferences.
Getting
around people that are winning.
Getting around people. You start getting around people, and it's like the power of association. One of the things that Morgan and I always talk about, we're not self-made. You can look at some of the results we've created in life, and a lot of people want to take credit for those results. Like, I'm self-made. Look what I've done. What do we always say we are?
We are mentorship made.
We're mentorship made. We are a product of our environment, an environment that we just plugged into, an environment that you guys have access to, an environment of association of people who have poured into us and who have influenced us over the years. And, when I got my Amway business started, I'm like, listen, all right, if I want to make this run to platinum, I'm going to have to establish some presets in my life. When Morgan got her business started, she built it single to what, 4,000?
Yeah.
Something like that. I kind of started stealing legs of hers. I'm like, this is my girl. I need these legs more than she does because she's going to be part of this business anyway. So, but like, what were some of the presets that you had as you got your business started?
I mean, I really just took the 9 core steps when we started business. Like, they had these things laid out, and I said, these are the things that I'm going to follow. Like, if this is a recipe, I'm going to follow this recipe to the T to be able to get this, these cookies to look exactly how I want them to look. And so I wasn't willing to, not add a certain ingredient to the recipe to mess up my cookies. I saw the business, and if our coaches and mentors, the system said, these are the things that you need to do, then those were my presets. You know what I mean? Like, I'm going to make sure that I'm reading every day. I'm going to make sure that I'm listening. I'm going to make sure that I'm associating. I'm going to make sure that that I'm using my own products, that I'm selling my products. I'm going to make sure that I'm networking and meeting people and all these things put together. But what I realized is that you would hear so many people saying they're doing a majority of them, or they're doing, a few of them, and you see their business not growing like they want it to grow. And so I just wasn't willing to compromise on that. Like, I was like, if this is how you get your business to grow, then that's what I'm going to do. I was going to attend the business conferences. I was going to attend the meetings because I knew that was something that was really important.
Did you have to? Did people tell you had to, or is it something that you took ownership of those decisions and you knew why you were making those decisions?
Yeah, absolutely.
I probably told you. I'm like, you're going with me, girl.
No, you never did. Reading for me was something that was very important because even though I understood business ownership as far as doing hair, like success principles and overall like mindset of being successful and, the business, owning a business and relationships and as well as like people skills. Those are some of the things that like I had never studied, certain things I picked up, like, understanding how to do hair, how to run a cosmetology business. I figured certain things out, but I wanted to, be a professional, and so I read people skill books. I read faith books because that's important to us. I read business, mentality books. I read mindset books, all positive mental attitude books, like all of these different types of books to make sure that I
read storybooks. Like when I say storybooks, like people like overcoming.
Yep.
I think that's super valuable too. You know, like hearing other people's overcoming.
Yeah, absolutely. And so those are the things. Those are some of my presets. When we talk about this notion of success, and maybe we'll talk about this here with you here in kind of our follow-up talk. But what does success mean? Like what does, because I think that can be defined in a lot of different ways. I mean, if I say success, what does that mean to you? I mean, success means a lot of different things. I think, I have this idea of like ultimate success. And for me, that is when, because we are in business, we've been in business for, for myself, 18 plus years. When I think of success, I think of my kids building the business with us and, having a legacy business and my kids being happily married. I feel like I will be like very happy and very content and very settled when all my kids are married to the people that they're supposed to be married to and happy and building the business together. And I will feel like, okay, like I have, achieved success. And, but, success, like Paul said, it looks different for everybody. Obviously, like when I got in business, success was just like, somebody that can, pay their bills and put some money away at the end of the month. That was success. Then I realized it's like, okay, somebody that, is like financially literate, somebody that actually thinks about things, somebody that thinks about, investing and having their money make money for them and delayed gratification, all these different things that like actually successful people think about and do. And so for me, later on in business, it's like, okay, somebody that is financially stable. So it's like at the beginning, financially stable, and then going, and then, the full legacy where my kids are building the business and they're married and happy and they've got kids. And that's like the ultimate, success. But everybody has to figure that out for themselves. You heard Paul talking about like, what do you want? Like, what is it that you want? And you have to have different levels of that. Like you have to know what you want, right now. Like what is it that you want right now? Like, and then what's your, what are your 1 year and 5 year and 10-year goals as far as like what you want? The whole time of building the business, it's always been like, what do I want? Like ultimately, what do I want my life to look like? But like, what do I want now and in the next like handful of months? Like, what do I want to create that is going to build to that ultimate, level of success? And so,
yeah. So I think so many people, and I'm gonna kind of shift gears here with you a little bit. I think so many people, this notion of success that we have in a lot of times within the IBO communities, but like in culture as a whole, there's this destination disease, I call it, that people think that success is the attainment or the accomplishment of like the goal that you have. And while we are huge goal setters, and we may talk about that this year in our second talk as far as like, what I call SMART goals, like specific, measurable, some say attainable, I say attackable, relative to where you're at. And here's what I mean by that. Not something too far down the road. I think one of the most important aspect of any goal that you set is that you believe it. You believe you can do it. And we'll talk about this here next, all right? But then timely, specific, measurable, attackable, because I believe the Amway business grows when you are in attack mode. When you're attacking building a customer team and growing your VCS, when you're attacking getting out of your comfort zone and beginning to connect with people and beginning to start to build your business team. But you're in attack mode. So specific, measurable, attackable, relative, and timely. We're big on goal setting and rewarding those. But I'll tell you this. This is something you don't typically hear in the Amway business. I think one of the most dangerous aspects to success is hitting your goals. Because typically, if success was the accomplishment of that goal, when you hit the goal, think about, I ran the 400 in track and field. I'm a quarter miler, and I'll come back to it, Morgan, talk a year and 2 and 5 and 10 years. That's great. That's more vision and long-term goals. That doesn't drive the Amway business. I'm telling you, the dream, the things that you want, it doesn't typically drive. It may kind of get you through hard time, but it doesn't get your butt out the door to go attack and win the day. Win the day. If you want Paul's definition of success, here's what it is. Winning. Hashtag winning. It's winning. Here's when you feel successful, when you're winning. And we always talk about winning, win small, win often, win consistently, win the day. But if you're going to get to the point that you're winning the day, you got to know what a win looks like. My goal, when I was making my journey to platinum, every day, my goal is when I went to bed at night, I would reflect on my day, being brutally honest. Great book, Good to Great, talks about being brutally honest. A lot of other great things from that book. But being brutally honest with yourself. So I would reflect on the day. What did I do well? What didn't I do well? What opportunities did I make the most of? What opportunities did I miss? What opportunities did I let fear rob me from? And I would reflect and I'd say, okay, how did I win this day or not? Now, listen, the reason that there's a scoreboard when you're playing like a sporting event is because if there's no scoreboard, you don't know who was winning or who ultimately won. So you got to have a personal scoreboard, in my opinion, on a day-to-day basis. What does a winning day look like? And so I would essentially reflect on my day, and I would be able to say, did I win today or did I lose today? And then before I went to bed, I would say, here's what a winning day tomorrow. Here's what I'm going to do tomorrow. We'll talk more about this, but one of my favorite quotes is, do the thing and you shall have the power. We'll start kind of our second talk maybe with that, but do the thing. What's the thing? Whatever you say you're going to do. When you say you're going to do something and you actually go and do it, mark it up there. There's a win. You did it. The more you actually follow through and do what you say you're going to do. Brent Harris 101. Everyone talks. So listen to what they say. Everyone talks. So listen, to what they do. What you do speaks so loudly that what you say, I can't hear. Go back to that first handshake with Brent. Actions speak louder than words. So
and if you're Paul, then you have to do a lot because he speaks a lot.
True statement. All right. So we're going to talk about what winning looks like, but let me go back to this. We're going to wrap up. We're going to close things out with this. Okay. Presets. Coach Stanley Redwine said, you're going to have to make a decision before you get to that point of pain, of doubt, discomfort, fear. So we had the opportunity, it's a pretty awesome opportunity, we got invited down here literally just last month. We just got back just over a week ago, but we went down to Australia and New Zealand. We got invited down there to an Amway event, to a team that's down there literally halfway around the world. And we did a 3-week trip to Australia and New Zealand. It was pretty awesome experience. Take our family down there, and they were able to really experience, and we were able to create some incredible core memories with our family. And we're not going to dive too much in the trip, but I want to tell you specifically about something that I had to actually apply, because you can talk all day long. You can know things like, who's ever heard that knowledge is power? We've heard that, right? No, it's applied knowledge. You can learn things from this event. You can learn things throughout the day to day and week to week and month to month, coming to conferences like this and attending events and reading. And you can learn a lot of great things, but why? The question is, why are you learning them? Are you learning them just so you have head knowledge, or are you learning them so you can apply them so you can start getting better? All right. The journey of mastery, which comes with a lot of failures along the way. And so I can talk about presets, but here's a living, breathing example of this. So we decide, and I've been wanting to do this for years. I've got some bucket list items, and some of these items were down in New Zealand and down in Queenstown, New Zealand. And there is the highest bungee in the Southern Hemisphere. The highest bungee. You go out on this, that you take kind of this little trolley over this canyon, over to this gondola that's kind of suspended over this canyon, 800 feet down to the canyon floor. And listen, I've been bungee jumping before. I've been skydiving 6, 7, 8 times. And I remember the first time I went bungee jumping, it was out in Las Vegas, and it was like a 150-foot tower. And I remember, you can't see my legs here, but my legs were doing this, just shaking. And I remember you're going to have to push me out. I was and the longer that I stood there, the harder it got and the more daunting, and that wall of fear, just the projection of that fear just getting greater and greater and greater. It didn't help that there was down below on that first bungee jump here in Vegas, there were chalk outlines of humans that they put. That is the God's honest truth. And they just messing with your sight. But I remember I stood there, and the longer you stay there, the harder it gets. Remember, in building the business, the longer that you stand and think about it without doing it, the harder it gets. So I made a decision. I had my girls with me, Nevaeh and Mariah, 14 and 12 years old. And they actually did, it's funny, after we did this, they did the largest, longest, highest bungee swing in the world, the two of them. I was so proud of them. And but I remember standing on before we went out and got in that trolley and went across to that gondola and looking down, and my heart was beating through my chest. My mouth was so cotton mouth. I was nervous and I was puckered up, man. But here's the thing. I decided that when I got out there, without hesitation, when I got to the platform and had an 8.5-second free fall of almost 500 feet before that bungee cord catch you, I decided I had a preset. I decided that I was jumping the second that the worker kind of let go of me. Didn't mean I wasn't scared, but courage doesn't mean you're not afraid. You want to be successful? You gotta develop courage. I talk to my girls all the time. Courage isn't that you're not afraid. Courage is that you're willing to do it even though you are nervous or you are afraid. And so I made the decision before I even got out there. When I got out there, I was freaking jumping. And we got a video here to kind of wrap up this first talk here, a video with a little picture. But I heard a long time ago, the key to success sometimes is starting before you're ready. And you just have to jump. For those of you guys listening to this, and some of you guys, maybe you've been standing on that platform for a while, and the longer you stand, the harder, the more daunting you get. Some of you guys are you're not even getting out to that platform yet. Here's my recommendation. You decide, you establish these presets, and when you get to that point, you don't think, you just jump. So enjoy this video, and we look forward to coming back to you. Love you, MMP team, and we enjoyed sharing with you for a few minutes here today.
For the calendar year 2024, the average income from Amway for all U.S. registered IBOs at the Founders Platinum level and below was $723 before expenses. CWW